Welcome to the OTA podcast, where we discuss everything performance training. I'm Coach Chris Barnard. Let's get into it. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the OTA podcast. I'm your host, Coach Chris Barnard. Today's question comes to us from our man, Chris M. Performance. His question is, how do you know when an athlete is ready to progress safely? I think this is a great question. Guys, if you guys have questions, go ahead and drop them down in the comments down below, and I'll answer them here on this podcast. Want to be able to give back to you coaches and athletes as much as I possibly can. So let's get right into it. The easiest way for me to answer this, because there's context in everything that you're doing. I don't know if you're referring to athletes coming off an injury, if you're talking about just normal athletes developing physically. Let's take it on that side. The best thing that I would say is real time, right? You start from a very foundational standpoint as far as your movements go. The movements are the movements. Let's say, for instance, you have a squat. This is a very basic pattern in what we do in strength and conditioning. How do we progress them, what I'm assuming, safely, to then get to more intense, more complex movements and under a greater load, right? Let's say we go from a body weight. How do we end up with an athlete being able to put a decent amount of weight on their back, right, with an axial load? The best thing that I could tell you is you start from the foundational patterns, right? The most basic, reduced down, and then you essentially evaluate real time how they're performing those patterns. And then that allows you to add wrinkles in. Now, through your warm-up, through you seeing how the athlete moves, their background, if they've lifted before in a high school program or something like that, right? Like if a NFL athlete comes in here, the chances of them obviously performing the squat pattern from the high school to the collegiate to the professional levels, my thought process is that this athlete has already learned this pattern and is already safely loaded. So it's a matter of me being able to evaluate, and I'm going to probably jump into some level, and it might start off with like a goblet or something like that, and then we might progress maybe next phase, if it's like a prep phase, into maybe a barbell, right? But if you're taking an athlete from like the youth level, how do we get them from like a body weight squat to putting that bar on their back? What I'll say is this. So from the youth level, start off with your simple body weight squat. We do this in our dynamic warm-up. So if I get a new athlete onboarded, I'm going to very quickly take a look at how they actually perform that pattern. Are their knees driving forward, or are their hips reaching back? Do they know how to squat? If I need to teach them that pattern and we're in the fundamental phase, and let's say they're real young, like 7, 8 years old, I might have them to go squat to box, right? Just body weight. You know, have hands out, or we could do prisoner style where hands are back, and we might focus on having that athlete reaching their hips back, right? Make sure that they know how to perform that pattern before we put it under load. Now let's say that they've now successfully can do 10 body weight squats, immaculate form, couple sets, everything looks good. Let's introduce a load. My next one is going to be basically from a progression all the way regress to progressing that. It's simply having them hold a dumbbell or a kettlebell in the front load position, or goblet, if you will. Now that I'll do this with a light weight, and I'll go to their capacity. Let's start off pretty light. Let's throw you like, I don't know, let's say 20, 25 pounds. See if they can still maintain that form and technique. Now, also too, while I'm introducing this, I'm also building them up. What you got to understand is, like in a goblet, you're forcing thoracic extension. In that front load position, it's pulling them forward. So you're building all those intricate muscles up their spine. You're preparing them for greater loads down the road, right? So it's a great movement from a progression standpoint. So I might have them build up there. They might stay in there multiple phases before we introduce, a barbell or something like that. So it's just one of those, there's different ways that we could take it based on the context of the athlete and the level that they're at. What's up, coaches? Real quickly, let me go ahead and introduce you to Performance Coach U certification. Now, this is the certification/course that I put together for coaches who want to train athletes and not only get results, but also maximize profits in the private sector. The problem that I saw with a lot of these courses and certifications out there for coaches was that they provided a lot of information and not a lot of application. So I wanted to pull back the covers over 10 plus years of experience and show you the ins and outs of actually being in the trenches so that you get maximum results while also scaling your business. So if you're interested in this, go ahead and check out the link down below and you can get more information. Then we can progress and we can add some different variations to the same squat pattern, right? Where then after they've done goblet, they met the requirements, we could see that they can maintain form with a decent amount of load. We can then introduce either like a safety bar, which is a little bit easier for them. There's a padding, it's a little bit more comfortable. Or we can go into a barbell unloaded. And we're, again, as we introduce these things, we're starting off at a very light resistance, making sure that they can maintain the technique and form. And as they increase the load, we're making sure that they're able to maintain that technique and form. Meaning that the barbell, if I'm gonna introduce a barbell, even to a young kid, let's say this goes unloaded, and let's say we put 10 pounds on each side, you're obviously making sure that they can keep their chest upright. They can, obviously support that load. So you're getting a feedback loop real time from your athlete as they're performing those movements, as you're going from the most regressed and then you're progressing them throughout. This goes for any movements, whether that be a push. Let's start with a hand release push-up. After we've nailed that, let's go ahead and then progress to maybe some light dumbbells in a neutral grip. Then from there, okay, now they're strong enough to where we can introduce a barbell, and let's introduce and teach the technique under a barbell and under a load. So I think it's technique first, then you increase the intensity and resistance, and then you switch to the new variation of that movement. So I think that's the kind of pattern that you want to follow for all of these movements. There's some select ones where it's like, hey, you just get better at doing it by doing it, such as things like pull-ups. So like a vertical pull, whether they're 6 years old or they're in the professional levels. The only way to get better at pull-ups is by doing more pull-ups. I understand that there's variations and things like that, but at the end of the day, it comes down to volume, right? So for most of the other movements, it's a matter of starting them off the most basic regress form, introducing it, making sure they're nailing technique. Once we put that under load in the safest manner, we can then switch over and then start to increase the complexity over there. And it comes in little wrinkles, real time, whether that be phase over phase in your programming or whether that be real time inside that training block, being able to see them maintain that technique and then being able to introduce or add a little bit more complexity, whether that come through variation or resistance. So I hope that helps. And I know that I'm a little bit all over the place because I'm trying to provide context, whether you're working with a young athlete, or if you're working with a high school, or if you're working with some of the oldest, maybe coming back from a rehab or something like that. So hope that helps, and I will talk to you guys next time.